The story of William Tell. The people of Switzerland were not always free and happy as they are today. Many years ago, a proud tyrant, whose name was Gessler, ruled over them, and made their lot a bitter one indeed. One day, this tyrant set up a tall pole in the public square and put his own cap on the top of it. And then he gave orders that every man who came into the town should bow down before it. But there was one man, named William Tell, who would not do this. He stood up straight with folded arms and laughed at the swinging cap. When you are practicing Zazen, do not try to stop your thinking. Let it stop by itself. Right at the far end of the park, under the big trees, stood the merry-go-round. It was an old-fashioned merry-go-round, and it had stood there for so many years that by now it was beginning to look a bit shabby. So Lamont has some right to claim a proprietorial interest in huge swaths of subsequent music. Usually, we think of our mind as receiving impressions and experiences from outside, but that is not a true understanding of our mind. Good is supplied as something experienced some time long ago, even though you may not remember when. An axe is buried in the tree just behind his head. Bottles are hung from the branches. When you try to stop your thinking, it means you are bothered by it. Do not be bothered by anything. Perhaps it was because she had always liked horses. All her life she had dreamed that someday she would have a real horse of her own to ride. A photograph, taken in New Jersey in 1963. Lamont Young sits cross-legged under a tree, wearing dark glasses, black shirt, tight black jeans, playing sopranino saxophone. If something comes into your mind, let it come in, and let it go out. It will not stay long. Penny was a little girl who loved to play make-believe, and many of her make-believe games seemed to her every bit as true as her everyday life. The theater of eternal music, Lamont called his performing groups, always involving Marian Zazela's light and color installations, her singing and gong bowing. These also included John Hassel, playing trumpet in the early 1970s, trombonist Gary List, and in the mid-1960s, Angus MacLise playing percussion, Tony Conrad on bowed guitar and mandolin, John Cale playing modified viola, and passing through Walter Di Maria and conceptual artist Henry Flint, who coined the term concept art at the end of the 1950s. At that time, your breathing will become quite slow, while your pulse will become a little faster. Certainly, the ancient city existed, as did the cities of medieval and modern times. But there is no such thing as a metropolitan city. And, when at last the music stopped and the merry-go-round slowed down, she always felt a little dazed and bewildered, as if she had suddenly stepped out of a different world. Nothing outside yourself can cause any trouble. It appears as if something comes from outside your mind, but actually, it is only the waves of your mind. And if you are not bothered by the waves, gradually they will become calmer and calmer. From up close or from afar, what surrounds us looks nothing like that. It is one single urbane cloth, without form or order, a bleak zone, endless and undefined, a global continuum of museum-like hypercenters and natural parks, of enormous suburban housing developments and massive agricultural projects, industrial zones and subdivisions, country inns and trendy bars, the metropolis. MacLise, Conrad, and Cale were members of the Primitives, the Warlocks, or the Fallen Spikes, all forerunners of the Velvet Underground. Interviewed for What Goes On, the Velvet Underground Appreciation Society magazine, Tony Conrad described promotional gigs for The Ostrich, a single written and recorded by Marie. The song was very easy as they explained it to us, because all the strings were tuned to one note, which blew our minds. We couldn't believe that they were doing this crap, just like in a sort of strange, ethnically Brooklyn style, tuning their instruments to one note, which is what we were doing too in Young's group. So it was very bizarre. In fact, we were tuning to two notes, and they were tuning to only one. All territory is subsumed by the metropolis. Everything occupies the same space, if not geographically, then through the intermeshing of its networks. It's because the city has finally disappeared that it has now become fetishized as history. You understand activity as just waves of your mind. Big Mind experiences everything within itself. John Cale and Tony Conrad played drums, which sound uncannily similar to the first Velvet album, particularly the Black Angel's Death Song and the intro to Venus and Furs. There were many wonderful sights to see in the park, and amusing things to do, but the children still liked the old merry-go-round best. And of all the children who loved the merry-go-round, Penny loved it the most. That everything is included within your mind is the essence of mind. To experience this is to have religious feeling. Even though waves arise, the essence of your mind is pure. It is just like clear water with a few waves. Marian Zazela, bows are gone. To speak of waves apart from water, or water apart from waves, is a delusion. Water and waves are one. Lamont Young has written that Maclise claimed the rain as his main rhythmic influence. A mind with waves in it is not a disturbed mind, but actually an amplified one. Whatever you experience is an expression of Big Mind. You yourself make the waves in your mind. But tapes tended to be sold for the immediate money. Little survives. In 1979, Maclise died in Kathmandu, aged 40, of hypoglycemia and drug complications. He belongs with a shadowy group of New York bohemians, shapers and shapeshifters of art movements in the 1960s before they became mass movements. Her mother would sometimes look at her and say, "Why, Penny, what's the matter with you? Are you feeling dizzy?" In 5 or at most 10 minutes, your mind will be completely serene and calm. Before the issue of a French album in 1973, Lamont's music could only be heard on a 7-inch flexi disc issued with Aspen magazine in a limited edition LP extract from The Tortoise, His Dreams and Journeys. The activity of Big Mind is to amplify itself through various experiences. In recent years, CDs have been released of The Well-Tuned Piano, The Second Dream of the High-Tension Line Step-Down, Transformer from the Four Dreams of China, and, strangest of all, the Just Intonation Raga Blues of Just Stompin' by the Forever Blues Band. In one sense, our experiences, coming one by one, are always fresh and new. But in another sense, they're nothing but a continuous or repeated unfolding of the one big mind. But the children didn't mind that. All through the long summer days, the music blared out, dum-de-dum-dum, and the prancing horses whirled round and round, and when the sun shone down on the faded paint and worn brass, it looked as good as new. Our indirect, often disputed, invariably unwitting, and unwritten. For instance, if you have something good for breakfast, you will say, "This is good." Not even these relatively high-profile works have dented mass public consciousness, however, so the links which can be made between his pioneering work and various forms of so-called minimalism, ambient, fourth world hybrids, the guitar noise symphonies of Rise Chatham and Glenn Branca, the isolationist drones of Thomas Kohner, Faust's krautrock, and the wide variety of guitar bands stemming from the Velvet Underground's explorations of distortion, More simple, more fun, more mobile, more secure. You've heard enough about the city and the country, and particularly about the supposed ancient opposition between the two. With Big Mind, we accept each of our experiences as if recognizing the face we see in a mirror as our own. For us, there is no fear of losing this mind. There is nowhere to come or to go. There is no fear of death, no suffering from old age or sickness, because we enjoy all aspects of life as an unfolding of Big Mind. We do not care for any excessive joy, so we have imperturbable composure, and it is with this imperturbable composure of Big Mind that we practice Zazen. Sonic Youth, Band of Susans, the Jesus and Mary Chain, Maine, Spiritualized, Spectrum, The Verb, Slow Dive, My Bloody Valentine, and so on. Poet and photographer Ira Cohn, painter Mattie Clairwine, electronic music pioneer Richard Maxwell, vocalist Meredith Monk, filmmaker and composer Phil Niblock, filmmakers Jack Smith and Ron Rice, and all of the Fluxus performance artists, some beginning to enjoy recognition 3 decades later. Turning away, she slowly walked back into the house so that he would not feel her fear. After a few minutes of watching him from behind a curtain, she heard his small voice tentatively begin a wavering little song as he started to slowly climb down the tree. Barbara's reflection is that there may not always be an answer to fear and isolation, but there is always a song. In those times of midnight in our soul, when despair overtakes our memories of blessings past, it is hard to believe that a new song would be put in our mouths. It is then, listening beyond our desolation, that we can sometimes hear the eternal guide who sings a song of hope in the middle of the night. In the economy of the spirit, nothing is ever wasted. When the hard ground of our heart is broken open by suffering, over time, new possibilities for faithful plain living may emerge. This chapter is about experiencing difficult times, hearing unexpected songs, and growing into new possibilities.